to this mix.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're talking with an old friend of mine, somebody who you guys may have heard before on this channel, Mr. John Bush. How are you doing, brother?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about something a little different than what we've talked about in the past. For those who are unfamiliar, I'll put the links below, but John has been on this channel talking about the Mutual Aid Society in the past. We've talked about freedom cells. For those who are aware of my work in freedom cells, John is the one who got me going on that and helped introduce me to the concept. But today we're going to focus more on health freedom. We're going to talk about addiction. We're going to talk about CBD and Kratom and, just a whole other area of importance when it comes to trying to be free in this world and live as healthy as possible. So let's get into it. John, tell the audience a little bit about, well, first let's give them just a brief introduction to who you are for those who might not be aware. And then let's talk about how you came to be involved with this type of work.
Sure. Well, my name's John. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas. I've been doing activism since 2002 when I began to question the official events of 9/11, if anybody remembers that. And from there, I learned about libertarianism and the Constitution, was introduced to Ron Paul in 2007. And from there, through Murray Rothbard, I learned about philosophical anarchism and agorism, and really started rejecting the idea that we should use politics to change the world, and instead we should focus on voluntary associations and alternative institutions and cryptocurrency. And that's where the idea of freedom cells came out of, this mutual aid society. And let's go ahead and build our own society now, in the meantime, as the other thing crumbles. And along the way too, I got really involved in natural health, and my own journey had some really miraculous changes, dealing with some chest infections and used nebulized with colloidal silver. That was my first big eureka. Like, wow, this is way better than going to the MDs and doing all the pharmaceutical thing. I had 2 children, so the whole natural health thing was even more important, to raise them in a more holistic way when it comes to their health. And when I discovered Kratom and CBD, it really stuck out for me just because of how profound the impact on people's health Kratom and CBD has had. So we started a Kratom business probably about 3 years ago. And it's been doing well ever since. And it's really meaningful work for me precisely because it helps so many people.
So more and more of, I think my audience and people in general are familiar with CBD, but in my experience, I've found that less people are aware of what Kratom is. So would you go ahead and give them an introduction to what Kratom is?
Yeah, so it's a member of the coffee family, although it has no caffeine, and it's made from the ground up powderized leaves of the Kratom evergreen tree. It's been used for centuries by indigenous cultures in Southeast Asia, mainly when they're laboring or to help take the edge off. In the West, after work, maybe people hang out and drink a beer around the barbecue pit. In Southeast Asia, they would make Kratom tea, sit around the fire, and converse with their friends. And it's become really popular in the West as of late, in large part to help with chronic pain. So there's a few distinct varieties. There's the red strain, red veins, and then there's the white and green, sometimes yellow. The red ones tend to have a little bit more of a sedative effect and have more of an effect on your body and help with relaxation, sleep, and chronic pain. The green and the white ones tend to be a little more uplifting, energetic. People take them for stress and anxiety, mental focus, helping to take the edge off. And there are very little to no side effects. It's all natural, and it's really helping a lot of people. And I think one of the biggest impacts is it helps people to overcome addiction to opioids like pharmaceutical prescription pain medicine, Oxycontin, Vicodin, and Percocet. It also helps people to overcome an addiction to heroin even. So that's been some of the most meaningful work that I've done in a while, just to see the impact that it has on people's lives.
Yeah, so I definitely have some direct experience with that. I mean, I've unfortunately have my own struggles with drug addiction, but just throughout my life, I've had a lot of friends who've fallen prey to, the opioid epidemic that's going on here in our country and around the world. And I've lost a couple of friends to heroin. A good friend of mine was able to get himself off heroin with Kratom, and then, moved to just like, I think he went to a weaker opiate, and then basically eventually was off the opiates completely and was just using Kratom. What's the active ingredient that is in Kratom, do you know, that is either giving the stimulation or the sedative effects?
Yeah, I'm drinking some right now. I should say some people take it in capsules. It has kind of a bitter green taste. I actually like it. It's like a fine wine. But let me go ahead and take a sip here.
So he's actually drinking it.
Yeah, I stand by my product. There's several alkaloids in kratom, similar to like cannabinoids, THC and CBD in cannabis. The two most powerful ones are mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine. Mitragynine is the main one that has the biggest impact and effect. These alkaloids interact with not only the opioid receptors, which is why the FDA tried to say it's an opioid to try to lump it in with this big problem, an opioid epidemic, when in reality, people are using kratom to overcome the opioid addictions and the opioid problems. And unlike pharmaceutical opioids, kratom doesn't cause respiratory depression, which tends to be the leading cause of death for people that are overdosing on kratom. In addition to interacting with the opioid and stimulating the opioid receptors, it also interacts with the serotonin and dopamine receptors, which is what helps it to alleviate stress and anxiety, and helps with the mental focus as well. So those are the two active compounds. There's research taking place right now to try to study these compounds, learn more about them. There's even patents that, of course, the pharmaceutical industries are trying to patent it so they can synthesize it and make money off of it. But in my opinion, the best way to take it is just the all-natural form that's been used for thousands of years.
So yeah, you mentioned some research. So other than, like you said, obviously we have thousands of years of different cultures using this in Southeast Asia. So evidence of them applying it, and then plus just anecdotal evidence of different people who've used it. But are there any scientific studies already available that look into just the effects in general of kratom?
Yeah, there's quite a few studies. I don't know if there's like double-blind placebo studies. Again, the big problem with this country and the way the government works is that it has to be FDA approved, and there's these huge processes before something can be considered a dietary supplement or some form of medicine. So like cannabis, however, cannabis is being more and more legitimized. There's not a bunch of hard science. However, there are scores and scores and scores of studies and research, and they indicate that through surveys and other forms of research that it helps people with chronic pain. It helps people to overcome the addiction. It helps people with the focus and energy. It even helps people with depression. And a lot of those same studies also indicate that there are very little to no side effects whatsoever, which is great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about. Because I mean, obviously, everything we put in our body, it's going to be processed through our liver and our organs. Have you seen, or you personally felt or heard anything, I guess on the negative end of that?
Yeah, so back when the FDA put out one of many little propaganda hit pieces, I'm excited and take it upon myself to debunk every bit of it. So they were saying that there's a liver failure. Kratom can cause liver failure. So I went out, well, let's see if there's any evidence of this. And I found one study that said in extremely high doses taken every single day that kratom can cause acute liver toxicity. Now, this is perhaps someone taking an ounce or more a day, a severe amount. Now, I will say that I'm very in tune with my body and have been for several years. So when there's changes or when I add something to my diet that I'm not normally eating, I'm able to tell the impact. So I take kratom regularly. I take it several days in a row, maybe a week in a row, and then I try to take a day or two off to kind of give my kidney and liver a little bit of a break, and so I don't develop too much of a tolerance. People do become dependent or form a habit around taking kratom. However, it's a great example of harm reduction if they were previously taking pharmaceuticals or even previously taking heroin. But I do sometimes feel that's when my body's signaling to me like, hey, you may want to back off the kratom for a little while. I kind of feel it in my liver or kidney just a little. I can just feel that my organs are feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So the alkaloids, you feel it when you drink it. It's not as much of a state change as cannabis per se, but you can feel the effects of it. And the alkaloids are pretty strong alkaloids. So it's probably just the liver having to work a little bit harder to filter that stuff out. I'm drinking coffee and stuff too, and having the occasional beer. So it may just be a little taxing on the liver. But other than that, for me personally, I don't really experience very many side effects at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned as far as the habit forming, because I did want to make sure that we put this out there just as we explore this topic, and as somebody who has been addicted, and like I said, has had friends who've been addicted and who have passed away. I've got family members who passed away from drug addiction. It's something that's been very prominent in my life, that I've definitely seen individuals trade one addiction for another. And sometimes, that there can be a benefit to that, even though it sounds like, hey, well, you're still addicted. Well, now you're addicted to coffee or this and that, right? Well, that coffee is probably doing less harm than shooting up heroin. And the
Yep.
goal is, I think the long-term goal would be to reduce the amount of things that we're dependent on. Because for me, I've just been, I'm a user of cannabis, but even with cannabis, I periodically take breaks because I want to make sure that I'm not like needing cannabis. I don't, otherwise I'm stressed out without, I just want to always be the one that I'm like in control of my body. If I supplement it with any medicines or kratom or whatever, that I'm the one in control. So I do think that's important for people to understand that kratom is, it seems to be from all indications, a medicine that's here given by the earth, and that cultures are using, and more research is showing the positive benefits. But I do think it's important for us to be the ones in control there. And also you mentioned the harm reduction element. Like if somebody does go from, which I have seen, from shooting up heroin, which is highly addictive and highly destructive and damaging to the body and to your life in general, to taking a couple of capsules of kratom, I think that's probably a move in the right direction.
Yeah, most definitely. And I have many customers and friends even that I know are using kratom and that are dependent on kratom. I can tell by the amount that they buy from me. But they were former heroin users. Some of them may even still use, and I suspect use kratom to kind of normalize things potentially during the day. But yeah, despite what the CDC and the FDA says, kratom alone, it would be very difficult for kratom alone to kill you. I'm not going to say that it can't kill you because you could overdose on water, for example, but there's very few instances of people dying from kratom alone in their system. And when the government tries to say that there's kratom-related deaths, when you look beneath the surface, they have fentanyl in their system, heroin, opiates, or one person was shot and had kratom in their system. They try to say it was a kratom-related death. Someone jumped off a roof. But yeah, the harm reduction is really what it's all about. And for someone to stop taking heroin, stop taking the opioids and opiates, which do kill people as an epidemic in this country, it's definitely a step towards harm reduction. And with Brave Botanicals, we try to take a holistic approach. It's one of the reasons why I really appreciate your work. It's not just the activism and fighting the man, but you have the holistic self-assessment, for example. We launched a Brave New You self-improvement group on Facebook and just recently launched the Brave New You recovery group. Like I said, it is a step towards harm reduction. And like you said, ideally, we don't need to rely on substances in order to find peace and balance. So we're trying to, I knew a bunch of my customers had suffered from addiction. I really appreciate the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, I believe, and he talks about addiction being the result of trauma in childhood. And a lot of people, it's difficult. They never learn the tools to cope with that trauma or to heal from that trauma. So they simply try to numb the pain. And that's why a lot of people become addicted to alcohol, addicted to heroin on the far extreme end. And so we try to share these ideas, share videos, share concepts, and create a space, a safe space where people can come and find support and get this stuff out and address it and face it and hopefully heal and not need to rely on kratom anymore.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So that's definitely, I think, important aspect of that is, you're an entrepreneur, you have a business, which obviously, social entrepreneurship is something that we believe in here and that we promote. And, obviously we promote healing as well in the holistic approach. So it's good to see, to kind of bring that full circle there. Let's get into a little more about the government propaganda, which we've mentioned a few times. Now, I know that maybe in the last 2 years or so, the FDA was they're saying they were going to either start regulating or making kratom illegal, and there was a big pushback. Tell everybody a little bit about that and where it's at now.
So kratom is illegal in like 6 states. One of those states recently was overturned, Tennessee. It wasn't illegal by the legislature, but it was illegal on a technicality for synthetic versions of kratom. So the natural kratom is totally legal. And I believe in those 6 states, which I think is Michigan, Alabama, Tennessee, Rhode Island, and a couple others. I think that it got lumped in whenever the legislature banned synthetic analogs like K2 and spice. And so they're like doing research. They go to the head shop.
The fake weed stuff.
Yeah, the fake weed stuff, which does jack people up. And there's like an epidemic with homeless people taking it and they're all like tweaking out. It's not good. And you can't overdose from that. And so like you got the K2 here, synthetic, chemical, and then you got the kratom next to it. So they're like, the government's like, we don't know what it is. Let's just ban all the things, right? And so that's been happening over the past several years. And then in 2016, towards the end of 2016, we learned from the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, that they wanted to emergency schedule kratom and add it to Schedule 1 along with heroin, LSD, and cannabis, of all things. There was massive pushback from kratom users. And I think that normal people that don't normally get involved in political activism were compelled to speak out, to attend rallies, to write and call their Congress critters, because kratom has helped them so much. And the thought of not having kratom, perhaps they would go back to their addiction, or they'd have to start taking the Oxycontin again and lose their groove and their presence. And so they fought back. There was like 50 plus US congressmen and 10 US senators that signed a letter to the DEA recommending that they back off of the ban. And wouldn't you know what, the DEA did. After that, the kratom users declared a victory, but we later learned that in fact it was the FDA that was encouraging the DEA to ban kratom. They started ramping up a propaganda campaign, putting out these bogus press releases that weren't even newsworthy. And then, of course, the mainstream media just gobbles up everything that they say without digging deeper, rarely ever offering an alternative perspective. And if they do try to be objective and unbiased, like the media tries to do, it's like one tiny little mention. And the headline says it all. A lot of people don't even read the articles. And so since then, the FDA and the CDC have been putting out propaganda trying to demonize, delegitimize kratom, make it seem unsafe. So it's hard for me in this industry when I'm like, yeah, learn about kratom, and someone, they hear me talking or watch a video, then they go Google kratom, and the first things that pop up is like CDC says 91 people have died from kratom. Kratom, deadly killer or helpful? It turns out also the FDA, as of late, has been going to state legislatures, to state pharmaceutical boards, to Health and Human Services, and even to city and county governments in an attempt to create an end run around the federal government's failure to ban kratom, and they're starting to pop up in municipalities. Thankfully, there's organizations like the American Kratom Association, the Botanical Education Alliance, that have paid lobbyists that are really pushing back. And I think the tide is starting to turn, but as you well know, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. So for people that use kratom or that like health freedom, it's definitely a fight worth getting involved in.
Yeah, I mean, to think about it, it's been 100 years of cannabis propaganda, and even like today, people like Jeff Sessions are still out there trying to push some of the same propaganda that's, been long debunked. So when it comes to health freedom, to bodily autonomy, like the government still wants to tell you what you can put in your body and what's safe and not. So I think my audience generally would be skeptical towards the things the government are saying. Yep. But and I've seen some of the stories, you've even shared some with me about different cities and localities that are now considering banning kratom, maybe under pressure from these other lobbyists you're talking about and from the FDA. So how has that presented problems for you? I mean, like if you're out there trying to, as a business owner, sell people kratom, sell people CBD, and the government's telling people that this is going to kill them, I mean, has that caused any problems?
Yeah, it's definitely by far the hardest industry I've ever been involved in. And I ran Brave New Books for a while and was selling books in the age of Amazon, which was hard. We mainly sold health products, and that's where kratom was born out of, where I discovered kratom and started selling it. But so as far as the people that would believe the mainstream media, in my activism, I realized long ago that we don't need to convince the majority in order to change the course of history, right? The majority always goes along to get along. We just need to find and pluck out that small group of people that are willing to try something new, that are willing to take a stand, that are willing to participate in alternative institutions. And the same thing goes for kratom and natural health. So the person that would read the CNN headline and believe it hook, line, and sinker likely isn't going to be my customer anyway. People that are going to try this controversial, weird natural powder, right? It's kind of weird. Like, what is this powder? It's kind of sketchy. They're not going to be my customer anyway. It's the person that already failed, that already lost faith in the Western medicine, the person that thinks their doctor is a con man trying to make money, the person that's skeptical of the FDA as they should be. That's going to be my customer. So the propaganda, I think, often backfires. And I did some Google search research. Whenever the DEA tried to ban kratom, the searches for kratom went shoo, and the business, my revenue for kratom at the bookstore just skyrocketed because all these businesses were backing out of fear that it was going to get scheduled. And being involved in activism, I know how to read the law. I know how the system works. Until they actually say it's Schedule 1, it's totally fair game still. So I ramped up my sales. And, they try to ban it. It ends up hurting them in the long run. but it has been extremely difficult. I haven't been able to do Facebook ads. I recently had my Facebook ad account banned because I constantly get blocked and banned, even just posting articles about Kratom and CBD. But what's been the most difficult is the Department of Justice under the Obama administration launched this program called Operation Choke Point, which they said was an attempt to hinder money laundering. And what Operation Choke Point does is it puts pressure on banks, who the regulators put pressure on the banks, who in turn put pressure on the credit card companies to no longer do business with undesirable industries like adult toys, cannabis, head shops, firearms. These are a few of my favorite things, by the way. And of course, Kratom and CBD were lumped into that as well. So over the course of the past 2 or 3 years, I've gone through about 5 or 6 different credit card processors and about 3 to 5 different clever hacks, getting my girlfriend's PayPal account shut down, my roommate's Square account shut down. And for the past 3 months, it's been the first time in my entire history of selling Kratom that I haven't had one little solution to take debit cards or credit cards. And it's hurt my bottom line. I'm crafty and I'm sticking with it. I'm starting to lean. I need to create other streams of income so I can be more resilient. I have 2 kids, like I can't just, if Kratom goes bottom up or if my stuff gets shut down or it becomes banned, I don't want to be left with all my eggs in one basket. But I'm so passionate about it because I see the effect it has on people and helps so many people that I'm committed to continuing to figure out a way to make it work. But it's not been easy at all.
So so you're saying the payment processors are blocking you for both CBD and Kratom, or is it specific to Kratom?
Yeah, so Kratom is just off the table. Kratom was always really sketchy. CBD is starting to become more legitimized with the passing of the Farm Bill that Trump signed. I think it was late last year. And then Texas just recently passed CBD and a hemp thing, saying hemp is legit and needs to be licensed and regulated and stuff. So there is like 1 or 2 credit card processors. I'm about to launch a website where people can pay with credit card to buy CBD. And then, of course, we're going to be promoting the affiliate link so people can support you if they want to try Kratom. We're doing a free ounce of Kratom for anyone to try. So follow the links that'll be in the show notes. And our workaround right now, our workaround that'll overcome their payment blockade is what's called e-check. And so it's really simple. And the e-checks are really prolific in the cannabis industry and in these industries. You simply put your routing and account number in, and it's basically like an electronic check that gets sent. Totally safe and secure. I would argue it's safer than credit cards. And definitely there's no fees and stuff. So if someone wants to participate and try the free ounce of Kratom, we're using e-check. And of course, we're always using cryptocurrency.
I was going to say, what about somebody who doesn't use a bank like myself? Can I buy some with crypto?
You can buy with Dash, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash. And then there's a payment option. You choose other. And if you have like Monero or some obscure cryptocurrency, Monero's not that obscure, I'll try to accommodate that. I should say, though, I used to have this plugin. I use WooCommerce and WordPress, and I had a plugin that would integrate invoices, and it integrated smoothly with my point of sale. And even the crypto plugin shut me down for using Kratom. It was a company. The solution I have now, it generates the address and the exact amount according to the crypto price. And it doesn't have any company or any third party whatsoever. So there's no way to shut that down. And thankfully, cryptocurrency is the honey badger of money.
Cool. So yeah, if people are interested, they can check out with e-checks. And, if you want to get some CBD or Kratom, as John mentioned, we're going to be partnering with Brave Botanicals now. So I will be putting affiliate links below for the free ounce of Kratom to get started. And if you want to get into this, especially those who are struggling with addiction, which if you've listened to my work before, you guys know this is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that I'm trying to put more effort into, educating. Because as I think I told you this, John, as I've done these tours now, touring around the country and talking about this message, I've met so many addicts within this, movement, or these sort of multiple movements going on, the truth community, what have you, who are looking for alternative information, who are looking for solutions, and who are either still in their addictions or recovering from addictions or just getting out of prison. And I think some of them come to me because they hear me talk about my story. But, so I've just started to realize that, wow, how many addicts are out there that end up coming to this alternative worldview of seeking health freedom and seeking freedom from government, corporations, and what have you, that are out there. And there's quite a bit from what I've realized. So if you are in that situation, I definitely encourage you to at least give Kratom a shot and see if it works for you. And CBD as well. And if it doesn't, well, there's maybe you can even just get plugged in with John and the Brave New You group for support in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone is welcome to join the Brave New You recovery support group. We have about 15 members right now. It's very active and people are sharing. People are encouraged to be vulnerable. There's a lot of groups on Facebook that are like really censored, and the moderators and admins will like block you for bringing up stuff. And people at first were like, can we talk about Kratom? I was like, heck yeah, you can talk about Kratom. It helps a lot of people. And one of the ways that it helps people that are struggling with addiction, especially the opioids and the heroin, when people try, a lot of people are addicted and they know that it's not serving them and that it's breaking their relationships and that they're not able to earn a living and they want to quit. They try to quit, and then the withdrawal symptoms are so overwhelming that they go back to the drug and they get caught in this vicious cycle. With the Kratom, you can quit, and it helps to greatly minimize, if not eliminate, the withdrawal symptoms. So back when I was doing Brave New Books, I would sell Kratom to this older woman in California. And it had such a big impact. She called to personally thank me for getting her the Kratom and for helping her to learn about Kratom. She was a grandmother. She had 4 grandchildren that she would watch. And she was addicted to Percocet for years and years. And she had tried to quit to no success. And she said it was so bad, she wasn't able to watch her grandkids. Sometimes she would get so bent out that she would like have to sit on her bed and kind of shake up and down. And the grandkids are running around crazy. She tried Kratom and she was able to quit completely the Percocet within 2 to 3 days with little to no withdrawal symptoms whatsoever. So that's why it's so profound and helps so many people. And again, as we discussed before, perhaps these people just become addicted to Kratom. At least they're not running the risk of dying. And people really prefer Kratom when it comes to chronic pain and prefer Kratom to taking these opiates and opioids because you don't have to be kind of tweaked out and edgy and weird. You can drive your car, you can go to work, you can have the energy to take care of your kids or your grandkids. So it's really a game changer for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Well, let's spend a moment before we start to wrap up on some of the benefits of CBD that you found. I'm sure some of the audience is familiar with CBD or at least heard the term because it's becoming increasingly popular. I know here in Houston, we just had the first CBD shop open up a couple of weeks ago, and there was a line out the door for hours because people were just so interested to hear more about this. But yeah, tell everybody a little bit about your experience with CBD and then some of the benefits of CBD.
Sure. Let me share real quick about why I personally take Kratom. The first time that I realized it had this huge effect, I was like, wow, blown away. Catherine and I were on this Bitcoin bus tour going around the country, spending cryptocurrency only. We had our kids with us, and it was really overwhelming for me to not only drive the bus, and we would drive through the night sometimes to get to our next destination, our next meetup, but I would also be a father and had to take care of the kids, make sure they're happy. And we had sponsors. We were Bitcoin companies and crypto companies sponsored our tour. So we had to do podcasts and editing and uploading. You know what that's like when you're on the road and stuff. It's pretty overwhelming. And so there's this one time when I was driving and there were bills that needed to be paid back at home. And I had to convert the crypto to cash in order to pay that. And we still had podcasts that we needed to do and upload. And I had such great anxiety that I had this tightness in my chest. And that only happened like 1 or 2 times in my life. And I was driving, I was like, man, this is bad. And I started to get this tightness. And so I pulled over. I remembered like, man, I got some Kratom in the back. And at this time I wasn't taking it regularly. I was selling it. I had taken it. I even took it a couple times recreationally just because sometimes it gives you some mild euphoria. So I was like, wow, this is cool. But this was the first time that I took it for its health benefits. And so I just grabbed 1 teaspoon, mix it up in water. And literally as I'm drinking it, within 5 minutes, the tension and the tightness in my chest just rolls off. And not only that, but it also shifted my perspective to one of abundance. And I had a different mindset. I was in a scarcity mindset. I was worried. I was thinking like, man, these sponsors are going to be so disappointed. We haven't put out the podcast we were supposed to put out 2 days ago. I still got to pay this bill back for Brave New Books back at home. And it just completely shifted my perspective. And I was like, oh, everything's going to be okay. People understand we're doing this good work and that it's a lot of work and it's okay if something might be delayed a day. And what a great opportunity we have to travel around and spread the word. And after that, I was like, holy man, this is wow. This is great. So lately I take it. It helps me with patience. I'm a father of 2 and they're pretty wild, rambunctious kids, as you know. And so it helps me just take the edge off and be more of a patient, peaceful father. And then in my entrepreneurship and my business, I drink some coffee or yerba mate in the morning, but usually around like noon or 2, that kind of starts to wear off and my brain gets a little foggy and cloudy. So at that time, I'll mix up some kratom, just as I did today. And it just helps give me some focus and motivation and put me in that good space. So that's why I personally take kratom. And then CBD, like you said before, a lot more people are familiar with CBD. It's more in the press. It's a part of the cannabis family. Everyone knows cannabis and pot and stuff. So CBD is a cannabinoid, and there's a multitude of different cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. CBD is heavy in the hemp plant compared to the cannabis, the female that produces the flowers that have the high THC. THC is another cannabinoid. These cannabinoids interact with the endocannabinoid system, which is found in our body, which is insane why cannabis is illegal. Thankfully, the tide is turning, but it's like, it's synergistic. It's on this earth for a reason, whether there was a God that put it there or it just evolved to benefit us, or even as Mike Adams says, like he says he's not sure convinced that it wasn't put here by aliens to benefit the humans. Who knows? But it's totally synergistic like many other plants. And the THC interacts with the CB1 receptor, which is in your brain. And that's what makes you feel high and kind of giddy and euphoric. The CB2 receptor mainly is found in your spleen and other places in your gut, and it regulates homeostasis and attempts to create balance in your body's systems. This is why it helps with inflammation, with pain, with relaxation. And so a lot of people use it for pain primarily. People have chronic pain. Inflammation is the root of pain and disease. People take it for stress and anxiety. I take some at night when I'm kind of amped up and having trouble sleeping. I'll take a dropper of our 500 milligram CBD and I feel tired and I sleep through the night. So yeah, it really helps a lot. And it's becoming more and more legitimate, which is a good thing. The THC is the CBD has trace amounts of THC, so it won't usually show up on a drug test unless you're just pounding it down. And so that's good too. So there was a study that I just saw actually that said there's a lot of heroin users that are overcoming their withdrawal symptoms using CBD as well. So there's so many benefits and there's literally no side effects when it comes to the CBD. So it's definitely something worth trying. We also sell that at our website.
Yeah, it's gotten so big that even my grandmother who lives on a farm in Kentucky takes CBD.
Nice.
So, she understands the benefits of that. Well, John, I appreciate you sharing all this info with us, brother, because we're definitely, taking the holistic approach. It's not just about let's use crypto and alternative currencies. Let's unplug from the Monsanto complex. Let's unplug from the government. But, we have to recognize that same system or those systems and that corruption extends to the health industry. And that's why so many different medicines have been criminalized or, attempts at prohibition. And now we're seeing those same efforts go towards kratom. And obviously, we didn't even, you're focused on kratom and CBD, but this is a part of a larger conversation about the right to alter our state of mind. We see the same thing with psychedelics. We've seen the same thing with, iboga and all these other areas. So I think it's a really important topic for people to understand how it relates to the larger struggle for a more free, more healthy world at large. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, just touching on what you just said, it's bodily autonomy is a fundamental human right. We have the right to put whatever in our body that we please. And it's ironic that the government is so afraid of cannabis and kratom. Meanwhile, they are just pumping out the opioids and they've created this epidemic. But thankfully, thanks to people like you and all this great work and the alternative media, I believe that the government and these three-letter agencies and the pharmaceutical companies and just traditional Western medicine has less credibility than ever. There's a place for Western medicine in emergencies, broken bones, car accidents, hardcore diseases where surgery is the only option, or maybe pharmaceuticals are the only option. But by no means is that the best solution for most of our everyday ailments. And using these natural substances can help us to find greater balance. So I'm grateful that we're partnering with you. And I'd love to encourage your audience, if they're curious about kratom, maybe they already tried kratom, give our kratom a try. It's been known to be really high quality, great customer service. And if you follow the links that Derrick will provide, we'll ship you a free ounce of green Maeng Da, which is our most popular and most potent strain for you to try for stress, anxiety, relaxation, chronic pain. And if you struggle with addiction, it's helped a lot of people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in and for listening to John. Thank you for your time. Again, visit him at bravebotanicals.com. I will put the affiliate link below, and you can get yourself a free ounce of Kratom while also supporting my efforts and John's efforts and helping you move towards health freedom. Now, we have to recognize that this is part of that larger holistic activism that I talk about, to take our health back into our own hands, and the things that we're putting in our body, the things that we're feeding to our families, and also the way that we treat illnesses and we treat addiction and we take care of ourselves, and not just running straight to the pills and running straight to the pharmaceutical industry or the Western medicine. The answers are within our hands, and they come from the earth. So let's get a grip on that and see how we can connect to solutions like this. Visit Berry Botanicals to find out more. And until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.